When Torchwood returned for a third series, instead of it being the usual 13 full episodes, it was planned on being a 5-part miniseries set over several days which would air over 1 week. This miniseries, entitled Children of Earth, was composed of one storyline, but it wasn't the only story produced set in this third season of Torchwood. As a prelude to the miniseries, BBC Audio produced 3 radio plays following the Torchwood 3 team, each of them around 40 minutes in length, dealing with one kind of alien situation or another. They followed on from the success of the BBC Radio 4 original production Lost Souls, which was produced as part of a lineup to celebrate the activation of the Large Hadron Collider in Geneva. The story, which follows on from the end of Torchwood's second season, reintroduces Martha Jones, still working for UNIT as the team come to terms with the deaths of teammates Owen Harper and Toshiko Sato. Martha, having been assigned as part of the medical team UNIT has posted at the CERN facility, calls over Jack and the others to help her investigate the disappearances of several members of the staff. One such person is her old friend Julia Swales, who was seen working with Martha in her debut episode Smith and Jones at the Royal Hope Hospital. The team soon help Martha track down where the people have been hidden, as well as the fact that the early experiments of the collider opened a portal to another dimension, and something got through. A telepathic entity, it began feeding on the neutrons in people's bodies, using its abilities to lure people by posing as the dead. It fooled the head of the medical team, Dr. Harrington, into helping, as he came to believe that the victims whose bodies began glowing as a result of the attacks were transforming into angels. Harrington, who was in mourning over the death of his wife, was an easy target for the entity, who became convinced that the collider had opened a portal to heaven, but Jack realised all it would do is allow even more entities to invade. Ianto also ends up as another victim when he and Gwen investigate the collider, and the entities use his grief over Owen, Tosh and girlfriend Lisa Hallett against him. Eventually, Harrington comes to his senses and sacrifices himself by confronting the entity in the collider tunnels as they are sealed. When the collider, which could not be deactivated, is modified to instead stop a portal from opening, both Harrington and the entity are destroyed. The first of the 3 audios was Asylum, which brings back the character of PC Andy, and has him help Gwen deal with a young girl found shoplifting, but in possession of what appears to be alien tech. The two befriend the girl, while Jack and Ianto figure out between them that the device isn't alien but rather future human technology. The girl, initially suffering from amnesia, begins to remember bits and pieces, allowing them to put together enough of a history to learn that she is from about 60 years in the future. She also remembers, after a blood analysis proves it, that she is only half human, and that this was the cause of much racial tension in her time. During her house fire, she was rescued by a future version of Torchwood, who demonstrated control over the rift and sent her back through it as a way of preparing themselves. The second audio, Golden Age, deals with the subject of some of what Jack has done during his time working for Torchwood. While the team are in Delhi, they discover the survivors of a supposedly closed-down branch of Torchwood, Torchwood India. Run by the Duchess, an old flame of Jack's, who welcomes him by firing a gun at him, the branch was shut down by Jack over 100 years ago, but is still intact and its members haven't aged a day. To Jack's horror, he soon realises the Duchess has gone insane and has used alien technology to freeze them all in time, and that this is what has caused the energy spikes and mass disappearances that brought the Torchwood team to India in the first place. Gwen and Ianto nearly fall victim to the alien tech, which has now started to feed off humans as an energy source, only to be rescued by Jack, who sabotages the Duchess's plans to give it even more range and scope. Its powers interrupted, the device explodes, trapping everyone left in their headquarters in time permanently, a fate Jack and his team only narrowly avoid. The third and final audio, The Deadline, switches the focus onto Ianto and Gwen, when Jack is incapacitated by a mysterious phone call, just one in a long line of victims throughout Cardiff. They call in Professor Stella Courtney, an eminent neuroscientist and an old acquaintance of Jack's, who comes in specially to help. While she and Ianto keep a vigil at Jack's bedside, Gwen gets a rare chance to have her husband Reese lend a hand in one of her assignments, as they track down the source of the phone calls. They eventually piece together that the phone sending out the calls, last used in the 1970s, was exposed to some kind of energy from the rift, and at the time caused another series of coma-like effects in the staff of a building society. The energy went dormant, but has now become active again and started to randomly call people whose phones are from that same era. By hooking a confiscated phone to the hub computer and an MRI scanner, they are able to disrupt the signal and revive all the victims. Although Children of Earth proved a ratings hit and took Torchwood in a new direction, it didn't offer the same amount of diverse stories it had over the previous 2 seasons. All 3 radio plays featured a regular Torchwood cast and give the actors the opportunity to play their characters in those variety of storylines that the limited scope of the 3rd series didn't allow. They can be considered a part of the 3rd season as they were released the week before the Children of Earth miniseries aired, one day after the other on BBC Radio 4. Each story has its own good points and bad points. Lost Souls launches the radio plays with a significant threat, but doesn't expand on certain plot lines like how Martha's friend Julia, a trainee doctor, ended up in a place like CERN. Asylum shows PC Andy's reaction to the idea of aliens and expands the character significantly and shows how a future Torchwood might come to pass. Golden Age addresses the idea of how Torchwood was run in other divisions, but considering the scope of people affected by the India branch's actions, doesn't really address them with any real satisfaction. The Deadline delves into how Ianto really feels about Jack, and allows both him and Gwen to take centre stage, as well as letting Kai Owen voice Rhys Williams, sharing some time with his wife, but again ends too neatly when so much more was to be resolved. But for those people who watched Children of Earth and found themselves wanting more, the BBC radio plays are the perfect answer, and I heartily recommend them.